Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here today. I could see Azim piling in with the first comment this morning. Last week's speaker, which is incredible. Like, the community not only speaks at these events, they turn up for the events when other people are speaking, which is amazing. If you haven't already, do drop in the chat feature where you're watching from. I've got Simon Haig in the chat saying desk to standing, music up and boogie away, whoop to West Midlands. Yes, Simon, bringing the right energy this morning. Azim, no more talking dogs. If you don't know what that joke is about, check this morning's email. Let's get going. So this morning we have the absolutely couldn't be nicer Grace Kite of Magic Numbers. Today we're going to be investigating the tipping point between performance and brand spend, particularly making use of Grace's investigation into e-commerce brands and e-commerce data, which is going to be incredible. If you could do me a favor throughout the duration of today's session, it is to keep that chat feature going as you are right now. It brings so much life to these sessions. And like, I've had a few people, I was at Brighton SEO last week and we were chatting with some members of the community and they were saying there's something really special about people coming together and helping in that chat feature. So please do use that chat feature to help one another as well as enjoy today's session. To do that, by the way, if your messages are presently set to hosts and panelists, switch them to everyone so everyone can see your messages. Before we get going today, I just want to say a big thank you to our sponsors. Today's featured sponsor is Storyblock, the headless CMS. They've just released a new guide into creating seamless, modern content experiences that exceed customers' expectations. That's linked in both the pre-email for today and the post email too. So if you want that guide, it's free to download. Check it out from Storyblock. Also, a big thank you to Braze, Exclaimer, Klaviyo, Impression, Cambridge Marketing College, and Redgate for getting involved with the community and continuing to sponsor. We wouldn't be able to do this without them. Today we'll operate as a talk and then a Q&A. So if you have questions at the end, do pop them in. And with folks tuning in from around the world, I can see Benjamin in Bangkok, Mark in Market Harbour. We're going for the alliteration today. We're going with Tara in London Bridge, Elizabeth in West Mids, Kirsty in Edinburgh, Susan in Belfast, and we've got someone in Jakarta there as well. Indra is amazing. So thank you all for being here. And with all of that said, my introduction is done. So Grace, it's over to you. Thank you so much for being here. You're an absolute legend.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, and hello everybody around the world. What a lovely start to the webinar this morning to see all of your messing up. I'm just going to now do that share screen thing, and hopefully you'll now be able to see my lovely yellow PowerPoint. And the question is today, when should marketers start investing in brand as well as performance marketing? And these are the sort of topics I'm going to talk you through. I'm going to start off with time to change. So like, when is the moment that actually it is time to change from performance to brand? And then what happens at that moment? It turns out that in most cases that I've seen, and I've worked with lots of businesses that have gone through this, that doing analytics, that there's sometimes resistance from people internally. So I'm going to talk you through some of the things that might help you get over that resistance in places. Then final section then is, what if you don't move over to brand? What if you stick with performance forever? And I've got a really lovely case study to share with you about that from a brand you will have heard of, actually. Then finally, we'll finish up with some Q&A. So keep your questions because I want to hear them and have a chat at the end. Okay, so look, if you sell online, it's likely that your growth during your startup phase is going to be powered by the online advertising tools that the platforms, Google and Meta, maybe Amazon nowadays too, provide. And these work really well when you're small and smallish. And it's really easy to see that that's the case, right? Your business is kind of simple and small enough that it's easy to see marketing working. You switch it on, you grow. So why change anything? Well, look, first of all, I wanted to start off with saying, actually, it is the right thing for most businesses to start with those kind of performance marketing tools, or those tools that the platforms provide. And this is a chart that comes from the ARC database, which has got hundreds and hundreds of results of econometric evaluations in it. It's something that Magic Numbers, my company, does with the IPA. And actually, this is a cut that no one's ever seen before, so a secret one just for you, which I've done. And what we've done is we've cut the ARC data just to show what smaller businesses do. And on the left there, you've got smaller businesses where the return on investment from their campaigns was quite low, so less than £1.50. And on the right-hand side, you've got econometric evaluations, the results, and the media mixes for smaller businesses that got a bigger return on investment, so greater than 1.5. And look, you can see, can't you, what's the difference between the two? Well, on the right-hand side, those higher ROI campaigns had more of those performance marketing channels. They had more PPC, they had more social, and they did less of the traditional brand building channels that we might use, things like TV. So smaller businesses get high ROI using performance media. So when you're relatively small, these are the channels that pack the most punch. And there's a reason for that. It's because when you're small, you can grow a lot via your own demand pool. I'm going to introduce you to what that is. And I'm not really one for doing lots of big theory, but what we've tried to do here is boil down relevant theory for the topic today into something quite simple. So demand pools is a way of categorized purchases that might happen in the category. And the grey demand pool there is where people who are only a potential customer of the category belong. So for example, in the months up to the run up of my son's birthday, I was in the category pool of demand for kids' t-shirts. I wasn't really buying now, but I was kind of vaguely thinking about it for his birthday. And what those people in the grey have in common is that they're not really ready to buy right now, but they're potentially going to buy. And the green demand pool there, right in the middle, is customers that are much more ready to buy. They're in the zone right now. They're ready to buy a product like yours, and they've maybe become aware of you as a seller, but they haven't ruled you out yet in favor of a competitor. So they're actively interested and available to you. And if everything goes well, they might become a customer. So marketing works to move people from the left to right, where the big arrows are. And look, startup strategies like paid search and social ads work like that right-hand arrow. They find potential customers who are ready to buy, and they bring them to your site so that you can purchase. And I'm going to call those demand harvesting activities. And some people might think of it as direct response or activation or performance marketing, but when they work straight away or soon after they reach their target. That left-hand arrow there is for activities that fill up your kind of green pool from the category pool. And we call those demand building, but you could call it awareness building or brand building. And what it is that the search and social are great at the right-hand task, getting people easily to the point where they can assess size or quality or delivery times and then check out. And look, what you're doing when you're carrying out your search and social activities, you're fishing your pool of demand. You're taking people out of there and you're converting them into actual customers. And this is absolutely a good thing to do early in the life of your business, because there are always a number of customers that are researching or shopping online, and they're in the market and they're not loyal to a competitor. If you've got a good product offer and a well-targeted message, you can convert those people to a customer very cheaply and also very easily. You know, an ad on a search page isn't very expensive to make or deploy, and if it catches someone when they're ready to purchase, they're easy to convert, right? If people see it at the right moment, it's well placed with the right message, then, you know, bish bash bosh, they're a customer, right? But the thing to know is that your pool can be fished more or less depending on how much you spend on your demand harvesting. So in this example, the business is spending enough to reach a third of the people in the pool. But look what happens as you continue to increase the amount of demand harvesting you're doing, the amount of search and social you're doing. In this example, the business is spending enough to reach 80% of the pool with demand harvesting. And actually, as you spend more, you're starting to reach some of the people that are harder to convert. So with all that increase in spending, all that extra pink on my slide, we haven't seen too many more customers over there on the right. And what's happening is you're reaching ever more of the pool, and eventually you've reached almost everyone, and the remainder are those that are least likely to convert. maybe they heard about your competitor first, or they didn't like the logo on the t-shirt so much. And you can increase spending on demand harvesting for longer if your pool is bigger, of course, but you're going to get to this situation where your pool is overfished quicker if your pool is smaller, either because it's quite niche or because the world has changed maybe in ways that make your category smaller. And that's a really important point to think about, because you can get to overfished quicker because of changes in the outside world. Pools of demand can shrink in ways that are not in your control. So this year, for example, around the world, energy and food prices have been going up. And that's caused many demand pools to shrink because people have to spend more on the necessary things. They have less left over at the end of the month. So they delay purchases on things that they don't absolutely need to get. So it's demand for the category that's falling, the grey pool, and that has a knock-on effect on the individual's pool of demand, the green one. So look, even in this situation, even though your marketing strategy might actually be the same, you'll be getting less customers for the same amount of effort in search and social. So you're reaching that point where your pool is overfished quicker. So what happens? What does it feel like when your pool is overfished? Well, look, here's a quote from a media expert that's been working with lots of online businesses that have got to this point where the pool is overfished. He says, your CPC goes up significantly, so your cost per engagement goes up significantly, and you're getting over what your target CPA is. Everything's become inefficient. And you can sort of hear the panic in his voice, can't you? These kind of businesses, like maybe you guys who are listening out there have this yourself, that you're really watching all those metrics all the time, and you feel them when they change in the wrong direction. And it's quite a scary moment, isn't it? But it is. But I'm here to tell you it's a very typical stage in the life of an online business. So much so that I made the ramp and bump chart here to describe it with my friend and colleague Tom Roach, who's brilliant at making stylized charts out of data, which I've seen. I kind of tell him I've seen this in data, and he makes one of these stylized charts for it. But this is a stylized picture. It's a model. It's got time along the x-axis and sales from advertising on the y-axis. And the left-hand side of the chart is when the business is young and growth is coming from scaling up demand harvesting marketing, mainly paid search and social. And as we said, like, this is a really good way to get growth when you're a young online business, because it's cheap and easy to control, and it can drive growth for a long time, often several years. It makes sense to fish your demand pool first, to convert people who are warm before doing harder marketing tasks. But look what happens in the middle of the chart. Once the business has reached a certain size, growth stalls, and that demand harvesting isn't working anymore because your pool's overfished. There's not enough demand to harvest anymore. So you reach what we call the performance plateau. And you can see on the right-hand side there what the solution is. You need to fill your demand pool back up again with more people. So that means reaching the right reaching people who are not ready to buy right now and staying in their minds until they are. Or maybe you need to convince people who currently prefer a competitor. So what do? Wider reach, richer creative, and attention-holding media channels. And essentially brand building is the answer at this point. So what happens when businesses go for that is that you see not only that direct effect, that's the yellow, but also there's a synergy where suddenly there's increased effectiveness of your demand harvesting, your paid search and social again. And that can be increased again and still produce customers. So in other words, the business can finally break through that plateau. And this is the sort of stylized model version of it. This here is a real life example of it coming out of an econometric model. And we've seen it at Magic Numbers over and over again, in furniture, in fashion, in finance, and more. What happened? This advertiser got about a year of growth by gradually increasing demand harvesting, doing search ads, then shopper ads, and then doing social media ads targeting link clicks. But after a while, they began to see less return from that additional spend. They could spend another £10,000, but it wouldn't move the dial on sales. So they'd reached this plateau. And then in this example, they got off the plateau by using a TV campaign. And when they took that step, it produced growth directly there in the yellow, but it also increased the effectiveness of their demand harvesting activity again. And what's happening in the background is that you're filling your pool up. Whether you call it demand building or you call it brand building or you call it awareness building, it makes a lot of people aware of you, and it makes some people start their journey to purchase. So it's filling up that green pool. And it's something that's under your control, converting people from being in that big grey unaware circle into the dark green one that you can fish from with your demand harvesting again. Okay, but all exciting, isn't it? But there's resistance. You've reached that moment in the company's life where it does seem like the right time to at least investigate demand building. But there's a problem, and the chances are you're going to come across someone in the business that thinks like this. No, I can't give you the name of the person because this was shared with me on the condition that it would absolutely be anonymous. But this is the most senior marketer in a UK scale up, talking about when he spoke to the founder. I spoke to him about brand building, and he was like, yeah, I'm not trying to do what you want to do. I don't want to become a household name and be famous. I just want to put £1 in and get £50 back. And this is quite often what senior people think, especially if they've grown up in online businesses that have succeeded via demand harvesting. They feel like marketing is something where they can put money in and get money back, like it's very transactional, like you're in control. It's not surprising they call it dashboards, because they make you feel like you're driving, don't they? And actually, in the early stage of your business growth, where the demand pool isn't overfished yet, that's what it is, because you can just fish the pool. You can spend £1 and get a customer and get £50 back. But we've seen that that won't last forever, and that filling the pool is necessary both for continued growth and a life that's a bit less risky. So how do you bring someone like this on board with the idea? And it's about showing them the right evidence. Now, I love measurement and evidence. That I'm a data person, and I'm quite happy to admit it. I love a spreadsheet. But you have to think about what the right evidence to bring is, and it's not always the most obvious thing, because the right evidence to bring is the evidence that will actually convince this person that needs to change or needs to move on. And in many businesses that are at the moment we're talking about, the person that has to be brought on board is somebody that's been involved with performance marketing for a long time. And it's rarely possible to skip the step of getting the performance marketing people on board. Maybe they've been there since the beginning, or they're friends with the founder, or they've quite rightly had the credit for growth so far, so that they can't be left to the side and ignored. And what skeptics like that person need to know is that when you do demand building advertising or awareness building or brand building, when you fill your pool up, it makes that 1 in 50 back equation work better and for longer. And it's because it's easier to harvest demand if there is more demand there to harvest. So the pitch to the performance marketing person, or the person that thinks marketing is really transaction, the pitch for brand is that it's going to make your job better and easier. This is a win-win, right? So they need to see that these three things that are going to benefit the performance marketing team as well as the business overall. You're going to get lots of visits. Many of them are a free or a cheap journey to you. You're going to get off that plateau. You're going to be able to spend money and it's going to work again. You're not going to be able to, you're not going to be in that situation where if you spend, the CPA goes down. And then the third one is just search marketing works better. You get higher rankings, lower cost per click, and everything becomes more efficient in the search marketing area once you go into brand building. So I'm going to show you a few slides that are evidence for that. And these are things that you could do in your own business with your own data, with your search marketing or performance marketing team's data when you do start with brand building. So here's one. Demand building makes your search work better for paid search, right? So what we're seeing here is on the x-axis brand reputation score, something that grows with demand building activity, and the bars are for click-through rate. And you can see that as the brand's reputation grows, because they've been doing brand building, advertising, so does the click-through rate. Now, look, in this study here, there's a slight dip on the top score and reputation. And we think that's because when the brand reaches that level, so it's so well known, more people come to it direct. But the pattern is very clear otherwise, isn't it? A stronger brand reputation, a higher click-through rate on paid search. And you might not in your mind go, oh, a click-through rate on paid search, that's really important. But a performance marketing person knows that click-through rate on paid search is really valuable. And the reason why is because the algorithms respond to click-through rates. So this is a sort of simplified flowchart of what happens when you fill your pool using demand building or brand building activity. And in the top rung on this diagram, there's that effect we talked about earlier, which is more cheap and free visits. And then in the second two rungs, there's also the effect of higher click-through rates and the way that the bidding algorithms for Google and others respond. What happens is that filling the pool leads to an improved click-through rate on both organic and paid search. And the search algorithms see this as an improvement in the quality of your ads, and then they act accordingly. So for organic, your listing moves up the page. And for paid, what happens is your quality score improves. And that makes it more likely that you'll win the auction for your PPC ads. And sometimes you'll win the auction at a lower bid price too. So all of that means that your paid search ads get cheaper. So brand building has this indirect effect on making search ads more clicked on and cheaper. So this is all really good news for your performance marketing team. And this is the sort of thing that they need to hear to get over the resistance to brand building. And here's a case study of a brand that made the transition. Now, it's funny to think of them as a startup or scale up, really, isn't it? Because they've been so successful. They've achieved such big scale Airbnb. But in their early years, they were all about search engine hits, and they were all about performance marketing and search marketing. And that worked for a long time. But in 2019, just before the pandemic, they shifted their marketing strategy to be more brand driven and less dependent on search. And do you know, it's something that actually their chief financial officer, their CFO now, is saying proudly in the press. He says, you know, I'm going to quote him, we made that shift and it's proven to be the right shift, not only in 2019, but in 2020 and 21 too. Because first they focused on PR, which was a good lever for brand building for them because people feel strongly about Airbnb and generate content. Then in 2021, they launched their first large-scale brand marketing campaign made possible by hosts. This drove traffic to the Airbnb platform by 20% more traffic. So that's that first win, isn't it? More visits. But what also happened was that their return on investment for performance marketing increased. And the CFO is saying this in the press. And their overall marketing spend dropped by over 30% year on year without any drops in traffic. And that's because the brand building was making their performance marketing cheaper and better and more efficient. 90% of traffic afterwards came to the platform direct, so you need to pay less in the search marketing zone, and profitability increased. Most profitable to date, marketing costs down 44%. So a huge case study of the success of brand building in improving how search marketing works. But is brand the only way at this point? There's something else that your performance marketing people might be doing, or there's some other way of getting growth at this point. And there is one actually, and I want to talk to you about a little bit about that and what happens if you go down that route, and where it might end up. So what happens if you know that you've overfished your pool, you've reached everyone that could want the thing that you sell? And we've mentioned that one way to get off that plateau is to do demand building, but there is another route, which is to widen your range so that you can access adjacent pools of demand and continue to use your search and social, your demand harvesting tools, to fish that other pool, and that can give you more growth. So the left-hand chart here is a total sales for the first product that this business had. And you can see that plateau pattern, growth sort of stalls as that pool of warm prospects online have all been reached. And, you know, what is this business to do if they want growth to resume? Well, if they don't decide to do brand building or demand building, maybe they take their expertise, maybe it's in producing t-shirts, and they move into another t-shirt, something with a different logo on, or maybe something related to the logo that was on that first t-shirt. An adjacent demand pool where they have some credibility and they have some warm prospects, and they know all about how to do demand harvesting. They know how to get people out of that pool and convert them into customers. You know, what keywords to bid on, when to increase spend, how to grab attention on Facebook or Instagram. So this is what they do. They launch product number 2. And because there are people out there that want it and are warm to this brand, they have a new green demand pool to work with and they know how to fish it. So they launch the new line and sales of that new product grow quickly. They still sell the first product, but sales of that aren't growing anymore. But now this company's growth at total level has resumed because the second product is growing and it works. So on they go to product 2 in orange. You know, at that point, it's now reached the point where its demand pool has mostly been fished and growth is starting to slow. And so they do the same trick again. Maybe they go into a third product and there it is in green. And growth can proceed again because the demand pool for one product gets fully fished. There's more growth in a new one nearby. And bigger e-commerce businesses typically have quite a large range of products, and the range sometimes looks a bit kind of strange because it's not very focused. It's gone kind of too big in a way to be really clear about what this business now does. Their ranges have got bigger and bigger and bigger for precisely this reason. They've grown by opening up new pools that they can address with their existing demand harvesting strategies, and they're good at it, and it allows them to grow and grow and grow. But look, beware, eventually there may not be enough adjacent demand pools to grow into. Your range might reach maturity, or it might start to be confusing what you're there for, like what to consume, what do you do when what do consumers think of you for when your range is kind of almost everything. And that's the story in the case study that I want to talk to you about next, which is my last little bit. It's Asos. They're a really good example of what happens if you don't do demand building or you don't do brand building, because they never really did it, but they did grow and grow and grow. They're now a huge company worth 2.8 billion or something. But this is their story. You know, they launched with that name as seen on screen, a really tight proposition talking about clothes that people in movies and things had worn. And you know, started off the Pulp Fiction wallet there, which I still think is a really cool item. And that had legs, the as seen on screen thing. But eventually it couldn't power their growth anymore. So they expanded the range outside of that original proposition so that they could apply their performance marketing skills to more and more keywords. Over time, they applied performance marketing to a much bigger range, then the same range in more geographies, and then lower and lower price points. And later, you know, they'd got to the point where they had 10,000 different black t-shirts on Asos, and growth had still slowed down, even in their newer markets, and even with all of those t-shirts. And so by the time it got to 2022, customer growth was only at 2%. And for the first time, Asos made a loss. And what's happened, if you look behind the scenes, is that they're running out of new keywords, new pools to target, so that growth has slowed down. And at this point, the business has recognised the importance of demand building or brand building, to the point that in 2021, they took a shortcut and bought the Topshop brand name. For those of you that don't know, this was once their main competitor, a famous and kind of very well-established brand selling to 20-somethings on the high street. And that enabled Asos to take advantage of Topshop's brand and top up some of their demand pools, but it still wasn't enough. The core range wasn't providing growth, and the new CMO comes in, brought in to diagnose and solve the problem. And what did he say? He says, well, look, more than 80% of our marketing investment has been focused on performance marketing, leaving insufficient spend focused on driving longer term brand awareness. And as a result of that, customer acquisition has slowed, with the cost to acquire a new customer has increased. So performance marketing costs going up. And in 2023, this year, he's publicly saying in the marketing press that his new plans are to increase broad reach marketing to drive brand awareness. So Asos has belatedly realised the importance of kind of demand building for getting off that. I'm going to call it the mother of all performance plateaus. So a cautionary tale there that you can put off the moment, but not forever. Okay, I'm going to finish up there and open up to questions.
Smashed it, Grace. Absolutely smashed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You said you would like to finish there, but you haven't asked me to do this, but like you've put up a QR code here, and would you mind just sort of speaking through this very quickly? Because like you deserve to sort of have this in the sun too, right?
Oh yes, oh thank you, so kind. We do offer training at Magic Numbers, and some of what I've talked about today is taken from our course for online businesses that have grown beyond scale up, grown beyond startup. We've got a cohort of it starting in a couple of weeks. So if you're interested, please do scan the QR code and have a look. We've also got a spring intake in April as well. So I'd love to see some of you lovely guys get to know you a bit better. In the course environment, it's lovely and cozy. We have lots of like live chats, so I get to know everybody that comes and does the courses, which is a great joy to me.
That's utterly brilliant. And like, if you want an example, a case study of Grace being Grace, then you almost zipped over that without saying it, but you absolutely deserve to be sort of speaking about this. It looks like an absolutely fabulous course. So thank you.
Thank you.
And also, I just want to pick out a few comments. Simon says, top class, digestible complexity, as always. Useful takeaways. Nice one, Grace. And then we've got Ian in the chat saying, legend. Not only is it solid gold, quite clearly you love what you do, Grace. And there is just a bunch of lovely folks saying lovely things. So thank you very much. Let's get into the Q&A because there's some absolutely fabulous questions as well. So thank you to everyone in the community for contributing those. If you give a thumbs up to any questions that you like, we'll make sure to try and prioritize those ones. So if you head to the Q&A feature, we'll find those. And make sure to have a search down the bottom as well, because there's some great questions that come in late. The first question is quite a tactical one that comes from Alex Knight. And so, you know, there are legitimate answers here, which is, in my experience, I don't know, and that's okay. But Alex says, as a small business, what is a good first channel to prove out brand building and start seeing results? And how much budget would you recommend assigning to it? So sort of speaking about that sort of flipping point, have you any experience or examples of folks really effectively using specific channels?
My answer, yeah, I have got an answer to this one. I think it's really exciting actually because you know what is the channel that smaller businesses can use? Because you know people always go, oh, brand building, it's telly, right? And that's hundreds of £1,000s on a creative, and you can't get a spot for less than, you know. So it's unattainable and it's hard to test and learn with as well, because by the time you've aired it, you know, you've spent so much that it's not a test anymore, it's the whole thing, right? But the good news is that online video is stonking for brand building. It's got all the same things that TV's got. Like it's got movement, it's got sound. Quite often you're actually holding the thing in your hands as well. So it's you're touching it too. So you know, video is always good for brand building, and online video works as well as TV in some cases. And it's emerging as a really effective channel for both short and long. And the reason why I think that is because I've seen it in 3 separate meta-analyses that all point to online video being the second best for long-lived effect and brand building after TV. So that's the answer. And the great news is you can whack it on and see what works, right? You get some data straight away. So you can put 2 and go, which one is it, this one or this one? So there.
That's fantastic. You know, and Azim's in the chat here. So it's interesting. We had a session last week on SEO, and we asked the question, if you had 1 hour to spend on SEO each week, what would you do? And Crystal Carter from Wix gave the answer, I would be producing video, which is really, really fascinating from the perspective of both of these answers mirroring each other. So thank you so much. That's a great answer and a great place for people to start. Hopefully the case is building up for folks watching in today to sort of say, time to invest some time, as uncomfortable as that feels. Maybe we should do a session on that quite soon. Thank you. So the next question comes from Azim, who actually was the aforementioned speaker from last week as well.
Hi.
He's a legend. He's so kind. And Azim asks, how can small businesses shift to brand building? Airbnb, a great example of brand building with larger budgets, but smaller businesses can't compete. He says apologies if that was coming up later in the session. So again, speaking of that inflection point, you know, I guess asking you about any experiences of sort of taking people on that transition from performance to brand, and any wise words that you may have to offer in that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, we've, as I say, we've been through it with clients quite a lot, and some quite small clients too, going through it for their first executions. And the thing that really works is test and learn. You know, you and it's something that I think we sort of all forget in the press. I think people forget about smaller businesses and go, oh yeah, just kind of do a great creative and put it on TV, and it's kind of not the easiest advice in a way to take, but the way real businesses do it and actually get it done is by dipping their toe in the water and testing. So with online video is one example where you can get data back. Regional tests for things like radio and out of home are also really doable. You just stick it on in one region and then have a look to see that region did better than the others.
Nice, that's perfect. You know, and that's the job, isn't it? That's the marketing job, to figure these things out. So thank you. Great. Yeah. Let's take the next one from Pollyanna, because you're giving just really wonderful answers that require very little extra depth, because you just know it. So Pollyanna says, how can scale-up brands measure their reputation / brand strength when they don't have budget for third-party measurement, etc.? E.g., they're not big enough to show up on Google Trends. And this is something that, like, I can definitely resonate with, because there's like share a search tools where it basically shows you at zero, right? So have you got an example of folks measuring their reputation particularly well at that stage?
Yeah, really, really good question. And if you're a small business, you don't travel search, and you know, you might commission a tracker or something like that, and even then you might not come up. It might be so your awareness so small that a move in it doesn't really mean anything in the sense of the statistical kind of sampling around it. The only thing I can suggest is that nowadays we do have much more online panels for kind of pre and post campaign dip. And my suggestion, I think carefully about what the sample for those dips should be. So get the research, get the panel to be really tight and dip before and after. That's one way around it. If you, with the riders, they're actually not that expensive to do it anymore. And then the other thing, and I know this you know, sounds strange, but in smaller businesses, talking to people, just talk to people. And it sounds really kind of from someone that's a real data person, just to say that. But you know, that is a really good way of finding how people responded to what you did. Speak to customers and speak to target customers. It's actually what we do numbers. So that's my own pocket lot with tip.
No, it's so perfect. Thank you. You know, we've had relationships in the past, and when we don't work with them anymore, but I know there's platforms like YouGov, as you say, and a test as well is another one that we've used in the past. So just as a couple of examples of platforms that folks can use. It also, your answer there mirrors what Mark Ritson was saying earlier this year about marketing for smaller businesses. he was speaking about it in the context of building a marketing strategy, and he was speaking about ethnographic research as an example of just getting out there and chatting with people or observing people.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
to mirror your point there as well, like it's so scary sometimes, isn't it, to go out and actually say hello to people and ask them the questions. I don't know why. I think we got used to being behind our keyboards, but it's the most valuable stuff that you can do. So thank you for that encouragement.
Yeah.
The next question comes from Zoe, who says, how would you, so the data you presented today was largely focused on e-com brands, and I know that we've had a chat independently about this, but how would you adapt this for B2B marketing, particularly where you might have a very long sales cycle, for example, 18 months? Are the lessons that you presented today applicable in the same way?
It depends.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, people say that, oh, it depends. And then it's not the answer you want. You wanted a bullet answer. But no, it does depend. And for example, we've a client which is GoDaddy. They sell domains, and they sell hundreds of domains, and that's to be because most people get their domain and put up a business website. But there are people who are doing it just so, and a lot of the businesses they do sell to a kind of quite small businesses, like, you know, I do lessons or something. I don't. That's not just an example. For them, all of the things we say are absolutely bang on because they sell a lot of links. But you know, if you're selling a system to massive corporations, you know, some of this stuff isn't right for you. You know, those people don't make those kinds of decisions by searching internet. They make them by getting recommendations and interviewing different people, or running a press. So innovation really, you know, you need Salesforce and that's really brand helps the Salesforce to do what really well. But some of the stuff we've been talking about with performance marketing just isn't appropriate.
Nice. Thank you, Grace. I don't know about everyone else, but I'm starting to get a few little connection problems. So if that continues, then we'll make sure we log the questions and put them to you afterwards as well. But we'll persevere for the moment because like this is gold. So thank you. I definitely got the majority of what you said. So do let me know, folks, if it becomes a little bit too much. The next question comes from Ilian. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So Grace, from your experience, is there an average age when a scale-up sees the performance plateau and realizes they need to turn to brand spend? It appears that scale-ups, which were founded 10 years ago, start seeing this around now. I don't know how that's based, but do you see an average age of company who need to turn to brand?
Sorry, first of all, sorry for turning myself off. It's just so the jitters go away, I think. I don't think there is an average age because the things I was talking about how the outside world affects it affect different businesses in different ways at different times. So what's happening at the moment is that a lot of businesses are finding themselves on the plateau, and it's less to do with their age and more to do with what's happening in the economy and what's happening in consumers' pockets at the end of the month. So I think that there are times when you see a lot of businesses on the plateau, and it's less to do with their age. But that said, if we were to kind of take away the effect of the outside world changing in ways you can't control, the amount of time you've got before the plateau kicks in depends on kind of how big the market for your product is. So again, you know, if you're selling t-shirts, everyone needs a t-shirt, that it will be quite big and it will take longer. And Asos went a long time selling black t-shirts. But you know, if you sell you know, I'm just looking over there to my right at my Technics 1210s. If you sell them, there's probably a much smaller demand pool and you'll get there quicker because, you know, you don't need those. Not everybody needs those.
I love it. That's a great. Thank you. Wicked. Again, just a wonderfully concise answer that says almost everything that needs to be said. So thank you. Which means we can go to the next one. We're going through the questions in an amazing rate today, but I'm crediting Grace for your answers here. It's brilliant. So Alex asks, Michael, one of the participants in the chat today, shared the long and the short of it. I've always understood that the strategy was both, not first performance, then brand. Grace, this is how Alex is phrasing the question. Are you really advocating performance first? And then I guess I might add an append here, which is, or is that just representative of what you see in the real world?
Do you know what? It's really funny because I was actually talking about this to Lesbianet yesterday. God, what a name drop. I don't do that all the time.
Whoa. Let's just hear the clang of
the yeah, no, because we're working together on something for F Works coming up in October, and we were talking about exactly this point. And he reminded me that they said something very similar in effectiveness in context, because yes, long and the short, it is both, but in you know, in effectiveness and context, they looked at different categories, and they also looked at different life stages, using the same methods that they used in the long and the short of it. And when they looked at different life stages, they had that same finding, that early life stage should be using activation first. So I love it when you know, different bits of research and different bits of data verify one another, and this is one of those. There are some exceptions to the rule, right? If you sell something that has, people have to trust you before they can buy it from you, going straight to performance marketing, even when you're tiny, might not be the greatest thing. Like, say if you sell medicine or something, you know, you can't just put up a Google search ad, I sell medicine, and people will buy it, because that's not how it works. But in the vast majority of cases, the two sources, Les and Peters and ours, line up on this.
That's really interesting, because you know, I can't help but place the marketing meetup in this context. You know, like anyone placing their own businesses as they hear you speak. And there was part of me in the middle of the presentation which was like, oh, you know, maybe we do, you know, put rocket fuel behind our growth, you know, by putting a lot more into performance spend. But I think that point you just made there about the trust element, say for example, we're a community business, you know, for want of a better phrase, you do need the trust, and you need the emotion, you need everything that goes alongside it. And so how we've grown to date a little bit more organically, maybe that's right for us. So I appreciate that, because it's really useful to delve into the nuance here. Alex has put in, I haven't read this, but I'm going to pick on Alex because they've put it in the chat. Alex says, rubbish analogy, but I always found the activation is the firefighter that gets the barbecue running, but it's just not sustainable in its own long term, which I don't think.
That's a great analogy. I'm going to nick that, Alex.
Firelighter, not firefighter.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm imagining a firefighter getting the session, the barbecue going as well, you know. Maybe there's a firefighter with a firelighter. Anyway,
But you know what you mean, Alex. We're with you.
So the next one's from Mohammed in the chat, and again we're sort of speaking to that inflection point. So Mohammed says, even if they, as in the rest of the company, is on board with brand building, they resist the use of mass market channels like TV and focus on doing social alone. Is there any advice? And I think this is about spreading the amount of channels that you engage with to do brand building. Is it just to present your slides?
Yeah. I mean, I'll just go back to that thing about different people need different advice, different evidence, and different types of data and measurement and things put in front of them to be able to change their mind. And you know, in the course we have a module on it, which is about, we call it the theories of change thing, and the advice is to talk to those people take them out for coffee or a pint, or if you're an agency or just or new to a role, tell them you want to do stakeholder interviews to get to know the landscape, and sit down with these people and find out what their beliefs are, and find out what sort of evidence might change their mind. And it could be some of the things that we've seen today, about brand is a win-win, and it's going to help you as well as and not push you out of being in charge of marketing. But it could be other things, like it could be case studies, or I met a CMO who couldn't put brand building to the founders until she had a really, really good story for why she hadn't done it already. Because if she went up to the founders and said, this brand building is amazing, she was just frightened the guy would turn around and go, well, why haven't you done it already then? And so she had to have the story about before we weren't on the plateau and now we are, so now's the right time. And she had to have that with her own company's data before she could go to him. So there's things like that to reveal. And as much as I love data and evidence, and I'll go, oh, MMM is amazing because it is, and we do it, but there's the right thing for the right person, and that's the thing to really reveal before you go headlong into producing data or case studies or frameworks or whatever.
I really appreciate that, because it strikes me that as a founder of a business, if one was to be confronted, and I guess the same is for a CEO, if one was to be confronted with a chart which says we're on the plateau, there's an ego thing that comes into that, as much as you want to avoid it, which makes you think, oh, that feels a bit sad.
Yeah, don't want to be there. Yeah.
I'm doing my job right, or something like that. And so you've just spoken to a case study example, and that does a great job of it. But do you have examples of where you've taken people on the more human journey of this, and sort of had to confronting them confronting them with the reality of the situation, but then taking them on the journey of accepting this brand building thing? Because I imagine that's, on the human side, beyond the data, quite a difficult thing to do.
It is a difficult thing to do, and it's one of the things that as a measurement company we at Magic Numbers are, you might decide that's not my job as a measurement company. You might go, oh, it's the client or the people that are buying the measurements job to make sure that the measurement is believed, and then the recommendations can be acted on. But we take quite a different view to that, and we do extensive stakeholder interviews with every client. And what you find is that nobody has an idea or a hunch or a belief randomly. They've seen something that makes them believe it, and quite often it's another piece of research, or they've heard a scare story about somebody that's equivalent to them has gone into brand building and it hasn't worked, or they've got a piece of evidence that shows, maybe Google or somebody has given it to them, that shows that there's the performance marketing is the only way to go. And so they've got some reason why they believe what they believe, and why they're not getting on the bus, I guess. And so one of the things that's really important is to reveal all of that. And then one of the things we do is to kind of put the pieces of evidence next to each other and explain why they might be pointing in different directions, and come to a point where all the jigsaw pieces of all of the different pieces of evidence point at the right answer. And honestly, it's not always the right answer that doing more brand building is the right thing to do. There are other times when actually it's not. So it is about talking to people, and it is about bringing them through that journey, but it's also about kind of understanding why they believe what they believe, because it's not the case that they're just stupid or dumb or lazy or frightened or whatever.
Absolutely.
Never is.
No, thank you. I think it's a boring cliche, but it's a true cliche. 2 ears, 1 mouth, and if you take the time, exactly as you say, to listen to folks and meet them where they are, then that feels really useful. So thank you for speaking to that, because I think the temptation is sometimes to go, to present the charts and say, this is what we need to do, or say, this is the long and the short of it, and not in a forceful way, but just because we believe it. And so I really appreciate you speaking to that human approach and taking people on that journey, because I think that's a really important part of what we do as well.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So I'm trying to scan through the questions. There's 23 open questions presently, and 4 minutes left. So I'm going to try and take ones which I don't feel like have been covered so far. So the first one comes from Mark, who says, Grace has previously shared a chart on the potential for growth for different categories in 2023. Travel was strong, furniture weak, for example. Given the changing economic circumstances, is there a view on this chart/data forecasted for 2024?
Oh, good one. And yes, there is. We've just done the update actually, and we've made this little tool called the Recovery Budget Planner, which you can access to just put in your category and get forecasts out depending on what you spend. But to answer your question, yes, the different sectors are different again this year, but a lot of the things that we talked about last year are still carrying on, because the reason why travel was doing well was because of pent-up demand from COVID, and all the latest figures on the travel sector is that it's continuing to be quite healthy. That said, anything else that's kind of an expensive treat is probably being put on the back burner at the moment. So and particularly things that we bought a lot of in COVID, which is furniture, mattresses, things like that they're kind of not going to have a good 2024. The forecast is that inflation will start to come back down again towards the middle of next year, but inflation is still going to be a feature of people's decision making going into for most of next year. And so the same kind of things apply in the expensive treats like electronics. Thinking of buying a new PS5, probably people are going to put it on the back burner till 2025 because they're just paying the bills and making ends meet next year still.
Thank you. That's a phenomenal answer. I'm looking forward to diving into the tool as well. So really appreciate that.
I will post it on LinkedIn. So if anyone wants to get a go to it, just if you're not already, join me up on LinkedIn and you'll get it.
That's amazing. Thank you. And we'll also we'll link it in the follow-up email for this session as well.
Cool.
So that will go there, as well as the link to your course. The next question that I don't think yet has been answered or touched upon yet is from Harry. So Harry asks, how long a data set would you allow a performance plateau before you start investing in brand building?
Oh, that's a really good one. Ooh, I haven't thought about that.
That's a good one then. We don't.
Yeah, I'll write that down and investigate it and do a blog about it.
That's great. Well, there we are. Harry, you've inspired something special there. So I hope that's something in itself.
Yeah.
Let's take the final one from Rohan. So Rohan asks, at one point you referenced brand reputation scores in your presentation. So how are they computed? Just so Rohan can know.
In that study, they had quite a big survey of the brand reputation scores. It came from an academic paper. But I mean, I think that we talked about earlier about kind of how to understand whether brand building is working for smaller businesses. And I think I'd kind of suggest that generally.
Nice. That's perfect. Thank you so much. Grace,
Pleasure.
You're an absolute legend. Thank you so much for the thoughts in your head, but also how you carry yourself. It's an absolute delight every time we get the chance to cross paths. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
And
it's been a joy.
And thank you everyone as well for tuning in, for your great questions today, for making the chat insane as it always is. It's dead appreciated. This is a really special thing, so appreciate every one of you. With all that said, we're back next Tuesday. I will promise no more talking dog videos if you would like to come along. It's with April Dunford, the famous April Dunford. And with all that said, I just hope you have a really, really brilliant day. And thank you once again, Grace. Appreciate the hell out of you. In the follow-up email, there'll be the link to the Storyblock resource and also a link to Grace's course. Do check both out, as well as saying thank you to Grace, because she's just a legend. With all that said, take care, everyone, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you.
Bye.